Thank you for watching my video. If you'd like to know more about facilities management, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification button.
How do you go from 10 properties under management to, let's say, like 100 properties to eventually 1,000 properties under management?
The company is normally built on 4 pillars. The first one is people. So selecting people who are passionate is very important.
Right.
Then you need to have good processes, and that's the second P. And then you need to look at the product. Do they understand the service that they are providing? So that's like the product. And then looking at productivity. Productivity means efficiency, means putting systems in place to ensure efficiency and effectiveness are in place. So that have under it quality control and those things.
Fantastic. That gives a very clear framework of people, process, product, and productivity. Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of the Bonk Realty Show. Today we're shooting from Dubai, and I have one of my favorite personalities from the Dubai real estate industry here with me. We have Mr. Abou Laban with us. Most recently, he served as CEO of AR Facilities Management, where his key accomplishments include growing the revenue by 125%, managing assets in almost 800 locations, and having grown the headcount by about 350%. He was recognized for quite a lot of the work that he did, including being awarded CEO of the Year and FM Executive of the Year in 2021, as well as Visionary Leader in 2022. He has spent close to 2 decades in the real estate industry, having previously worked with companies like the Mac and Cushman & Wakefield. It's to have him here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Welcome to my home.
Oh yes, this is a very nice setting for us to be shooting this episode as well.
Thank you. I thought it would be different from having it in an office.
That was a really nice thought. So let's maybe jump right in, right? A lot of our listeners are FM leaders and business owners in the FM industry. What do you think are the top 3 metrics that they should be looking at on a daily basis when they are coming to running their business?
If you are managing a company, you need to look at your financials. So now cash flow is very important. You need to look how much you are collecting and how much you are spending. You need to always try to be cash positive. You need to look at your costs also from procurement perspective, etc. So the financials as a whole, you need to have a look at and keep a very strong eye on. The second thing is health and safety. You need to ensure that health and safety is paramount. That culture is cascaded all through the organization. Spot checks, you need to have policies and procedures in place. But you as a leader also, you need to go on site and make sure that things are done in the right way and people are seeing you as the owner or as the CEO of the company on site with them. The third thing is the operation excellence and customer satisfaction. So you need to ensure that you are meeting your SLAs and KPIs and reviewing those things with your operations team. So those are the 3 main things that I will talk about.
It's a very clear set of 3 things to look at as well. So really appreciate the clarity there. When we're looking at the FM industry, something that we notice is that quite a lot of new players keep popping up all the time. And it's fairly easy for them to get a couple of early customers, just within their network and from their experience. So it's very evident to us on how do we differentiate a bad FM company from a good FM company. But what we'd love to hear from you is, what are some things that differentiates a great FM company from a good FM company?
Okay, that's a good question. A great company is a company that has great culture, that they work towards one goal and is supported by a good backbone. Good backbone or a spinal cord of a company is a good system, a good CAFM system, good ERP system. So the smaller companies cannot afford having those kind of systems in place. Normally their work is based on paperwork rather than having becoming paperless with the mobility solution, utilizing state-of-the-art technologies from augmented reality to virtual reality in training, for example. So technology is a key differentiator. The other thing, the larger companies can also afford, investing in their team and
Yeah.
in their ISO, in their certification, in their BICS, and in their ISA certification, for example. So all those things are important when you are looking at a great company, but all of it needs to become very covered by one big culture, which is a culture that you need to go towards customer satisfaction, customer happiness, and give them a good experience when you are delivering services to them.
Fantastic. That's a really interesting point to say that even though the FM industry really interacts between people and the real estate, the point that you actually need to start from the customer and work backwards from there.
Definitely, you have to be customer oriented in everything you do. If you are in service in a hotel, or in a restaurant, or in an FM company, or property management company, the most important is the customer, and you need to give him a good experience. Let's say you are in a burger joint. From the entrance, how he orders the burger, to the time he goes to the washroom to wash his hands and then leave the restaurant. The experience is very important. Same thing for an FM. When you are providing services to a compound or to a commercial tower or to a hospital, we need to be giving the people a good experience from the service level as well as the customer interaction. The customer need to see a smiling technician, somebody at the reception. He's greeting in the right way, in the right language, right attitude. All those things are very important.
Very interesting. Just as you mentioned that point, the thought that went through my mind was that although we can implement a lot of technology to kind of track how the built environment is managed, some of the points that you mentioned, they're not really things that we can quantify using technology. This really comes through training, right? Any pointers that you can share on how the FM industry and the FM leaders should think about training their staff?
You need to look at the needs for each team. It's definitely the responsibility of each manager to identify the needs of his team. There's some items which are general. So for example, if you are working in the cleaning industry, you need to have a BICS accreditation or ISA accreditation, and you need to have a training facility. And that gives a very structured way of doing things for the training. However, if you are looking at the skills of each engineer or manager or supervisor, you need to identify those things and ensure that you are coaching them. You will find sometimes a gap between the top management and then the mid-management and the low management, where some of the mid-management would not know how to actually identify the needs for the entry-level managers or the engineers. So a good HR team, a good CEO, in the collaboration between them with other heads of department, they would be coaching them, helping them to help them. How can I identify the needs of each individual within the team? Because as much as you grow and improve the team, you become better. I always say we are as good as our weakest link. So we are as strong as our weakest link. And so identifying the weak links within the team, that doesn't mean you get rid of them. That means you try to coach them. So there is a process of helping people. Some people, in my experience, the majority of people would want to be helped. They are shy sometimes to say, I need this. So a good manager would be identifying that and helping his staff.
That's a very interesting point. Like, everyone wants to progress in their career, even if some of them are too shy or they're not very comfortable asking about it. So the point that a good leader will work with the HR team to kind of identify these people and kind of help them forward, that's a really, really interesting point. A lot of these challenges, as I was just listening to you speak, I realized are scaling challenges. What that means is that in the early days of the company, when typically it's the business owner who's kind of started it and maybe has the first 5-10 locations under management, properties under management, because the business owner is so passionate about the business and they typically kind of manage to keep a check on all of these things. But the real challenge really comes in how do you scale it? How do you go from 10 properties under management to, let's say, 100 properties to eventually 1,000 properties under management? So for anyone on that growth path, any FM leader on that growth path, when they have got an early start, into the business, and now they're understanding and thinking about how do they scale it 10 to 100 times the scale that they currently are operating at. What do you think are a couple of things that they should keep in mind? What are the most likely challenges they're going to encounter?
I'll start my answer from using the word that you used. I love it. It's called passion. So the business owner need to be passionate, but everybody within the organization need to be passionate about what they do. When I hire people, and I tell also all my team when they are hiring people, if somebody is not passionate about what he does, don't hire him. And you can see it on different levels, from when you are hiring a technician, or from when you're hiring a supervisor, up to when you're hiring an operations director or a manager. The company is normally built on 4 pillars. The first one is people. So selecting people who are passionate is very important.
Right.
Then you need to have good processes, and that's the second P. And then you need to look at the product. Do they understand the service that they are providing? So that's like the product. And then looking at productivity. Productivity means efficiency, means putting systems in place to ensure efficiency and effectiveness are in place. So that have under it quality control and those things. Obviously, when it becomes too big, one person cannot be in 100 locations.
Right.
But when he is cascading all those policies and procedure through a good culture and having everybody going towards one goal, which is to grow the company, provide cost-effective services, understanding the customer and keeping him happy. All those things are big things that you need to cascade within the team. And that way, if you're keeping repeating those things and ensuring that you have policies and procedure that guide the quality of the service, inshallah, the growth will be sustainable, and you can continue growing without affecting the quality or the reputation of the organization.
Fantastic. That gives a very clear framework of people, process, product, and productivity. Right. So that's a really interesting. It's good that you said it in the same way as well, so that people can kind of remember that and kind of execute their businesses in the same way. Something that we notice, because we have customers in so many different parts of the world, right? We notice that every region gets certain things right and gets certain things wrong. And we feel that, if we collectively bring this information out, like people from different parts of the world can kind of understand what they're doing well and, what they should possibly do better. So with respect to FM in, let's say, Dubai, what do you think is one thing that the FM industry here gets right? And what do you think is one thing that the FM industry here should do better?
FM industry here in UAE is leading the path in the Middle East. And we gained from a lot of expats coming to the Emirates in the past 20 years. That helped that transformation or that knowledge to be moved from different places in the world and then be implemented here. The thing that, so for example, implementation of softwares, of systems, of CAFAM, this has started a long time ago. However, in some instances, we overdo things. And what I mean, sometimes there's a good idea, but, we end up overdoing it or overstretching it. I'll give you an example. Sometimes there's now an idea about something called the auction, online auction. So basically you tender, let's say 10 companies tendered for a project, you end up passing the technical, and then they go to the financial. Now obviously the nice thing is to have 60-40, so 60 on technical and 40% on financial. But what you see now is that after everybody passes the technical, okay, although the solutions could be different, but they forget all the technical scoring and now they go to the financial. Now there is a couple of things here. The first thing is that normally when you do an auction, it's the last step in negotiation. I think it's fair that the last 2 or 3 people, they give them that option. So within half an hour, please come back to us with a revised price. But what happens in UAE, and I've experienced it, where you come second in a tender, and then during the auction, the people or the company that came 10th or 7th, end up going to the first place because they just went they want to win the project, and they end up putting a very competitive price. So from the client, from his side, as a cost, he may have achieved good savings, but maybe this company is not the best technically, or even if it is good technical, on the financial side, I don't think it is fair that to engage all the companies. You should engage maybe the top three. So sometimes they do it. And I can understand, the position of the client, but also for the service provider, sometimes it's not fair.
Fair enough. Well, that's a really interesting point, right? Like, because we noticed that the FM industry, with respect to technology implementation, in Dubai is actually very far ahead. Because most companies here have either already bought, implemented, or are thinking about buying. Whereas in many other parts of the world, people are not even in that stage yet, right? So it's a really good point that it's a very tech first, kind of a market. Now that we're anyway talking about the tech, so let's maybe talk a little bit about implementation of software and technology in the FM industry. So let's start with maybe the end users, right? So it's of course easy for management teams and teams that are sitting in the office of an FM company to use technology, because they're anyway already on laptops, and they're anyway in a nice office, so it's easy for them to use these systems and look at these reports and the dashboards, etc. But the end users are actually people who are at the property. We're talking about the technical staff, we're potentially talking about housekeeping staff, people who are always on the move, and they might not always be the most sophisticated users of technology. So what do you think on how companies should implement technology for this user base?
Okay, there's a couple of points here that I'd like to make.
Sure.
You have the technical staff, which is divided into two parts. One is the hard services. Normally, those people have technical education and have a degree, so to a certain extent they can read and write.
Sure.
The other part of the staff are the housekeeping or the cleaning operatives, and in some cases, if not the majority of the cases, they have a small command of the English language, even in reading and writing.
Sure.
Then you have on the other side the customer who is actually living in the building or working in the building, or in a hospital or in a now I'll start with the third part, which is people who are the customer, I call them. Okay, the customer in a building, in a mall, etc. Normally they prefer to call a call center. They don't like to use an application. Maybe when they are in a residential compound, some of them like to use an application, but normally it is an application under the property management or under the community management, which is linked in the back end with the facilities management service provider. Unless he is buying a service for his home, then you'll find some applications in UAE which can connect you with different service providers at the same time, and that's a B2C application. When you go into the other side, we said at the facilities management company, there is hard service and soft services. So normally there is a mobility solution with them. It's either an iPad or a mobile phone, which could be an Android or an iPhone. And then the idea that I want to stress on here is to simplify it, especially when it comes to the house cleaning operatives. So in one of the implementations that I've done last year was to ensure that it's very simple. QR code, scan it, take a picture, scan it, close, and that's it. But if you tell him there's a checklist and everything is in English, the guy doesn't read English in the first place, the cleaning operative. So it's not fair. So he will be just unchecking or checking everything. Make it simple for the cleaner, okay, for the housekeeping staff, make it visual for him. So for example, if he's doing a room in a hotel, make sure that you're putting items on each item, on the pillow, on the sheets, on cleaning the floor, etc. And just with a small touch, make it green or red, and then he can put a small comment, voice note or whatever. But putting visual aid for the staff makes it easier for them, definitely.
Oh, that's a very interesting pointer, putting visual aids and taking it forward from there. Also, a very interesting point that a lot of times I think prop-tech companies and even leadership teams get carried away with how much they believe technology can do for the business. And as you rightly mentioned, building out elaborate apps which have like big checklist workflows and like so many different work approval processes, etc. Those things are easy to build but incredibly tough to implement as well. As you rightly pointed out, right? Like it might not be easy to get the team to use mobility solutions at scale, especially. So now let's talk about the implementation portion as well, right? A lot of times business owners believe that their job is done when they actually buy the software, from any particular provider. But we both know that it's far from the truth.
Yes.
So let me maybe ask you, like, what are some points that FM leaders should keep in mind when implementing a CAFM system?
Okay, when you're implementing a new CAFM system or any software, you need to understand that it will take you a lot of time to implement it. So you buy a software, it's an empty package. So you need first to ensure that you understand your processes and you have them written down. And then you have a good project manager from an IT perspective. You have good people from finance, from operations, from health and safety. But basically the most two important or three important pillars are operations, finance, and procurement. So if you have those three really understand their work in coordination with the project manager from the IT perspective and solutions team, then the implementation would be smooth. But normally it will take up to 2 years, if not 3, to get it to where you want it. And it needs like daily at the beginning, then weekly, then monthly follow-up with the implementer, the consultant that you bring, because normally there's a company that sells the software,
right,
and then there's a company that actually programs it.
Yeah.
After a certain stage, I would advise to bring a programmer in-house, so that when you are, let's say, in phase 3, when you're fine-tuning, doing some reporting, integrating it with another small app or small software, you have the resource in-house. And that he could be the administrator of the software.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So just going back to an earlier point that we were talking about, because now you brought up, maybe at some point it's interesting for an FM company to bring 1 or 2 programmers in-house, right? Just so that they have the agility to move forward. Now let's maybe talk about a similar concept at a real estate development company level or at a property management company level. At what stage in, let's say, the real estate development life cycle do you feel that the developer should consider bringing the FM capability in-house?
Okay. Normally, if anything you are buying, you need to make a buy or make decision. So if I buy it, is it cheaper for me or it is more expensive? So that's one angle. So you need to have volume to be able to cover your overheads to set up an FM company. And then is it you are doing it for yourself? If you are only doing things for yourself and you are concentrating on developing homes, villas, apartments, commercial towers or whatever, and you want to sell, then you have a strong in-house team to be a managing agent or to supervise third parties. But if your business plan, you want to diversify your income streams, where you build or you invest in a defensive investment mechanism like an FM company or a community management company or a property management company, then you need to have the scale, and then you need to have good systems and prove the concept on yourself and then go out to the market. The next important point is that normally when you are a real estate developer, you need to ensure that you have good quality associated and good service associated with your product. So you have the product of selling an apartment or a villa or an office, but also you need people to come and say, oh, I like this community, I like this building because the service is really good.
Yeah.
So you need the FM company becomes plays an important part in maintaining and helping the brand shine through giving a good experience for the tenant or the person who bought an apartment or a villa in that community.
And it's a very important aspect as well, because real estate developers play a very long game. Their brand name gets built out over decades, right? And when they don't have good control on how the asset is managed after them exiting the project, and let's say maybe the FM team is not doing a really good job, 10 years from now people are going to say, hey, that developer does not really do good projects, but when in reality they did a good job, just
Yes.
that they weren't able to manage it really well.
We mentioned earlier about how UAE is ahead of the game. So now the majority of the developers would engage the facilities management at an early stage, at the design stage, and they would do FM design reviews. They will look at the operability and the maintainability of the asset in the future. The good developers definitely will not look at putting the cheapest equipment and making a quick buck. They will look at putting something which is cost effective, which serves the purpose, which is energy efficient. Now we are going towards the net zero. Also, that's another driver. So again, the other thing that is important to take into consideration, that the government, the management of the whole country goes towards certain direction of sustainability, of net zero, and that pushes the governmental sector as well as the private sector, and under them the real estate developers, to adopt the latest in technology, the latest in sustainable ways and methods to ensure that they reduce their carbon footprint. Again, in Europe they are maybe a little bit ahead of us, where there's you pay tax now, and there's a lot of countries that are saying now we have to actually demolish some buildings and rebuild them in a sustainable manner, so that we avoid tax. We are not at this stage here, but I think the approach that the UAE in particular has adopted is a fantastic roadmap to reach net zero and have a better environment for everybody living within the United Arab Emirates.
That's a really good point. And right now sustainability is so much of the focus as well, right? So it's really interesting to know how the country itself is moving towards that. Just one last quick question on the PropTech side once again.
Yes.
Are there any technologies that you wish existed for the FM industry that don't already exist?
I think many things exist. The problem is the implementation, and some of them are at the infancy stage. So last year we won an award for applying the augmented reality, and I've spoken about this, moving the technology from F1 to FM. So I saw the augmented reality technology in GITEX 2 years back, and it was on a stand of a company called TeamViewer, which are the sponsor for Lewis Hamilton F1 AMG car. And I was interested in the car at the beginning, and then I noticed how they use it between the factory and between the car, or the engineers that service the car in different areas of the world. And I thought, okay, that could help my engineers, and this could be a good communication between the subject matter expert and the technician on site, which will reduce the transportation from a cost perspective as well as the pollution, and make us more sustainable. And now that has been implemented across. Virtual reality is something that there's companies that are developing training material, and you can put the headset on the head of any person, and then he can have it in any language. So English, Arabic, Urdu, Talim, Hindi, etc. And that makes the training easy for the technician to have in his accommodation, and it is one-on-one, rather than at the moment there is a lot of people attending one training, and sometimes there's a language barrier and a concentration issue because there is a lot of people at the same time.
That's right.
So there's technologies also on artificial intelligence, on IoT now. That's the new big thing, collecting that data, looking at it, making the computer help you with the machine learning and the AI to look at future trends, which can make you more cost effective from an energy perspective, but also in your operations you can go towards condition-based maintenance rather than just the preventive maintenance that we normally use.
That's really interesting, especially the point about how virtual reality can be used to train staff. right?
Yes.
Because we hear of a lot of applications for virtual reality, but this is the first time I'm hearing how it can effectively be used to train the team.
Yes, there's a couple of companies that I was in touch with, and what there is now is more towards health and safety. But the good thing, when you tell them, okay, I want you to develop something for me, you can collaborate with them and they can do the programming, the animation, and all this, and then it could be branded even with the branding of the company that you work with.
So, one of the interesting things that we see in the automotive industry, for example, is that there is a generational shift happening. Like, people are moving away from petrol and diesel based vehicles to electric vehicles. What do you think is one such transformative trend which could potentially happen in the FM industry over the next decade or two?
Again, technology is key. I think a lot of places you're starting to see robots, cleaning robots, in particular. Especially in the times where there is, let's say, the mall closed, or it's a dead shift in the evening. So the deep cleaning is being done by the robots. You're seeing augmented reality, as I mentioned earlier in our discussion. As soon as you know how much it will save for you money and the return on investment is good, you would adopt it. So I had a couple of my colleagues in the FM industry reach out to me and ask me, how did you do it? How much it cost? And I even posted the video on that online. The use of the artificial intelligence in chatbots, something that you will see more in the future. Integration more between property management and facilities management is something that you could see, but everything will be driven towards technology because people want to do things faster, more reliable. But always there needs to be a balance, and there needs to be a shift in how can we use the technicians in a different way, in a smarter way. So there will be a development, a learning curve for the technical staff, that today the technology is here to help you, not to replace you, because that's always something that the technical staff would be afraid of. Oh, robots, they are going to do the job. No, they won't. They can do part of it, but they cannot replace you completely. Call centers, I've actually heard it from some of the staff or from operators that in the future all those avatars and virtual chat rooms will replace us. Maybe it will reduce your work and you would be doing something else, but I don't see a replacement. Personally, when I call the telecom operator and I want to ask for something or complain about something and I get the virtual operator, I'm just saying, please connect me to a real person, because it's just at a stage where it's not reliable. Obviously with time it will grow, but without people nothing will move forward. We are the people, we are how to put it in a nice way, people invented technology, not technology did not invent man. God invented man, but we invented technology. So we will keep using it for our advantage, for the development of the industry and for the development of the environment we live in, and hopefully it will work, it will go in the right direction.
That's a very interesting point. There is this thought itself, which is that you will not be replaced by AI, but you might be replaced by a person who's using AI. And that kind of falls in line with what you shared as well. We could keep talking all day, but we're running out of time. Thank you so much for sharing all of these insights here with us today. Thank you so much for allowing us a chance to shoot in such a wonderful background. Thank you so much for inviting us to your home. We would love to do this, once again, maybe in a couple of years, to see how things have progressed since. But thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for coming. My home is your home, and hopefully you enjoy your visit in the United Arab Emirates, especially in Dubai.
Thank you so much.